There's updates on the Bari Weiss saga. Bari Weiss nuked the CECOT story, openly stating her desire and openly stating that CBS News is no longer going to do any sort of serious coverage on the administration. And while she was in the process of nuking the story, she basically offered it a lot more daylight, even though it probably still would have been more impactful if they just released it. Because 60 minutes covering it is obviously going to be a little bit different than, you know, all of the previous coverage that's come out of it. So in that way, I guess she Streisanded it, but she also got all the normie boomers to not watch this news coverage, because like the normie boomers that go on and watch 60 Minutes, they're not gonna investigate this further, right? So she Streisanded it for, I guess, I don't know, a lot of people who were invested in it, but that wasn't enough. Now she's sending an email out talking about building trust. Bari Weiss to CBS staff is a new email that leaked because everybody hates her. I've explained this already with poetic language, as a matter of fact. Every job in the United States of America requires you to climb Dick Suck Mountain, okay? You just got to sit there and you just got to put in the work, right? You got to sit there and you got to put in the work. Except for Bari Weiss, she failed upwards, and she failed upwards quite fast. And therefore, because she failed upwards and failed upwards quite fast, she pissed off a lot of people. She pissed off a lot of people in the media, and people in the media love to gossip. Here, this is one of them. Everybody hates her. Like, why wouldn't you hate her? If you are a lifelong career reporter, journalist, editor, producer, whatever, okay, and you've sucked a mountain of dicks, okay, every day is a climb on Dick Mountain, and you're sucking it, okay, and then Bari Weiss, who objectively sucked less dicks, but the right kind of dicks, gets one on you, and now she's commanding the entire franchise. You're like, what do you mean? I've been climbing Dick Suck Mountain every goddamn day. You mean to tell me that you could helicopter your way to the top because you sucked one cock? That's bullshit. And then also, obviously, there's people that are doing good work as well. Say metaphorical dicks just to be safe. Yeah, of course, I'm talking about not real dick. That's it. Bro, there had to be a better analogy. No, I stand on this. I think this was a pretty solid analogy. Like, anyone who's worked a real job knows you just got to play ball. It sucks. It's not even like just ass kissing. It's everything. It's ass kissing and also simultaneously putting in the work. Okay? Sometimes you just gotta crack your knuckles, roll up your sleeves, and get to town on Dick Suck Mountain. Okay? That's it. That's what a job feels like to me. Okay? And the reality of the matter is, sometimes people don't actually put in the work. You know? They don't put their hair in a ponytail. They don't crack the knuckles. They just get elevated to the top. Okay. And when someone does that, all the other people look at that. Yes, I mean a real job. All the other people that are at varying different levels on, you know, Dick Suck Mountain, they're gonna look up and be like, how the you get there? You weren't with us. You were not here with us at the bottom. You were not here with us in the middle. Okay. You went straight to the top, and that creates a lot of resentment. And also, not only does it create a lot of resentment from others, but also you didn't even do any of the work. You didn't even do any of the necessary work. So now you're inexperienced sitting at the top. And that is the problem. Okay? That's the problem. Some examples of this, obviously, are Kash Patel as the director of the FBI, right? Donald Trump likes him, puts him in charge of the FBI. All of a sudden, FBI's falling apart. Dan Bongino, another great example. Alina Habba, another great example as Attorney General. There are a million examples of this, as a matter of fact, with Donald Trump and the Donald Trump reign. When you put the biggest brown nosers and the highest, when you place an emphasis on loyalty over competence, you arrive at the current situation that we're in. Bari Weiss sends out this email, says, hi all, right now the majority of Americans say they do not trust the press. It isn't because they're crazy. To win back their trust, we have to work hard. Sometimes that means doing more legwork. Sometimes it means telling unexpected stories. Now remember, the reason why all of this stuff gets leaked is because everybody hates her, okay? For good reason. Mostly. There's like jealousy as well. But most of the people hate her because they're like, you have never done any real journalism. Like, you've never worked in a newsroom. You did op-eds for the New York Times. You tried to get fired so you tried to get fired from the New York Times when you had this cushy op-ed job as the liberal adjacent conservative voice in the New York Times because they wanted to do, ideological diversity for their dumbass readership. Okay. And they wouldn't even fire you so you could kickstart your I got fired from the New York Times for being right-wing grift. So you basically fired yourself because this is real. This is what happened with Bari Weiss. She was at the New York Times. She famously did that one piece on the intellectual dark web where she called Ben Shapiro a gladiator, an intellectual gladiator of the right. And she was so unlikable, and yet she could not get fired. The New York Times was like, no, we love your stupid, liberal adjacent conservative commentary, right? We're a big fan of that. We love that shit. Have you seen the other op-ed people? Are you kidding me? This is our bread and butter. So she just could not get fired from the New York Times so she could start her grift. So instead she resigned and then basically said, do you mean New York Post? No, New York Times. Bari Weiss at the New York Times. She resigned and turned around and said, they were bullying me. There was bad workplace culture. I had to self-fire myself. And then she went to the same billionaires that she was already caping for. And those billionaires gave her unlimited funds to start the unaccredited university, Austin University, which, I've covered in the past, and also start the Free Press to peddle the exact same garbanzo that she was peddling at the New York Times on the op-ed side. Okay. And now, failure after failure, she has received seemingly the only kind of upward social mobility that exists in any industry. But that's precisely the reason why everybody around her, all of her colleagues, hate her. There will be some who think, oh, well, if Bari Weiss can do it, I can do it as well, right? If Bari Weiss can reach the top by sucking up to billionaires, I can also do it as well. But for the most part, a lot of people get annoyed because they look at this and go, you don't deserve this. They either look at this with jealousy and say, you didn't put in the work at all, you're incompetent, and you're unlikable, and you don't deserve this. But then there's a lot of people who understandably get upset with her because she is incompetent. She is incompetent. She does not have the experience. She's never led a newsroom. Her experience in commanding a news team, in air quotes, is at the Free Press, and that wasn't a real newsroom at all. They didn't do any new reporting. They just pumped out the same tablet magazine article about how Jews are being killed in the Upper West Side of New York City 1 million times over, okay? And then every now and then they get really crazy with it and do Jerusalem Post-style coverage on how, the Gaza famine is actually a myth. That's it. That was her job. Talking about the campus wokes as first hysterical, silly folk, and then as the greatest threat to American democracy. That was her job. That was her position. And then every now and then talking about how like AI is great actually, and billionaires deserve more. I asked because I'm genuinely curious, not to be a facetious asshole, but what kind of jobs have you worked pre-content creation? My climb on Dick Suck Mountain started at advertisement sales, my friend, where you do it both literally and figuratively. Awful. Anyone who's ever worked in sales will tell you is the shittiest thing, and it rewards people who are sociopaths. It sucks. To win back their trust, we have to work hard. Sometimes that means doing more legwork. Sometimes it means telling unexpected stories. Sometimes it means training our attention on topics that have been overlooked or misconstrued. And sometimes it means holding a piece about an important subject to make sure it's comprehensive and fair. I love that she's like now tripling down on why she nuked the CECOT piece. In our upside down moment, this may seem radical. Such editorial decisions can cause a firestorm, particularly on a slow news week. This was not a slow news week, lady. The f are you talking about? Slow news week? For who? The Epstein files were like a nuclear bomb that was set off. How is this a slow news week? And the standards for fairness we are holding ourselves to, particularly on contentious subjects, will surely feel controversial to those used to doing things one way. but to fulfill our mission, it's necessary. Now, what I find really funny about this stuff is I always ask myself, like, who is this for, right? Because she knows this is going to leak, right? She knows this email is going to leak. She knows everybody in the news team hates her, right? For good reason, for the reasons that I just described. So who is this for? Like, when you try to make it seem as though the CECOT piece was not ready to go, when you claim that the CECOT piece is not ready to go, and it's actually a matter of journalistic integrity, when you have none, and everybody knows you have none, you're just going to piss off your news team further, because they were all in unison saying that the piece was actually airtight and totally ready to be delivered. So much so that they actually cut trailers off of it. So much so that they actually put it on international distribution. That's why it actually aired in Canada. It was very stupid of her to try and spike it at the last second too. If she had maybe spiked it beforehand, if she had spiked it prior to the trailer being released and prior to this being okayed for international distribution, potentially it could have been avoided. But because she's also doubly incompetent, she waited till the very last moment until she figured out this is not a good idea. Let's spike it. In any case, continuously defending this as though it's like some sort of principled stance for true journalism is so stupid, especially because the people that worked on this piece, regardless of their ideological predispositions, regardless of how much they previously have done pro-Israel or pro-American State Department propaganda, are a million times better journalists than Bari Weiss is, because Bari Weiss is not a journalist. Do you understand? Like, those people, even if I disagree with what they do from time to time, are still doing investigative reporting, okay? You are not. Not only do you want biased reporting, not only do you want reporting that actually favors the Trump administration, but you don't even want to do the work. Like, at this point, I would say Project Veritas does a better job of at least presenting themselves as real investigative reporters than Bari Weiss does. I despise Project Veritas. They do hatchet jobs. They lie. They cheat. They edit things deceptively. But at least they go out and put people on the field and try to film them secretly and make real, make new news, right? Make original reporting happen. Even if it's very clearly filled with lies and unethical, they're still, at the very least, trying to make original reporting happen. Bari Weiss is not even doing that. She is commanding a ginormous news team, and she's not even invested in creating, investigative reporting in the direction of the Trump administration that suits their propagandistic purpose. It's triply incompetent in that regard. It's pretty funny. No amount of outrage, whether from activist organizations or the White House, will derail us. We are not out to score points with one side of the political spectrum or win followers on social media. We are out to inform the American public and get the story right. Restoring the integrity of the news is a difficult task. We can't think of a more important one. Merry Christmas and thank you, especially to everyone who's working over this holiday. Yours, Barry, Tom, Charles, Adam. Of course, Charles Gasparino, one of the, Fox Business guys, who I guess this kind of message is specifically tailored for, says, I know Bari Weiss is getting a lot of heat for the pulled 60 Minutes piece, but if this comes down to the show not airing White House comments, her attackers are going to look very dumb in short order. That's reporting 101, even if the comments are spin. You have to run them in any piece of this kind. Now, what's really stupid about this is, of course, 60 Minutes reached out to the White House. They did. And the White House said, no. The White House didn't respond for comments. What are we doing? So going forward, it's just an automatic veto. Anytime the White House does not respond, it's an automatic veto on a piece. Is that how journalism is supposed to be conducted? Are you crazy? Anyway, this one is for the journalism nerds in the chat. And I know there's plenty of people in this chat that do care about this stuff. I don't think the average person cares about this. But ironically enough, Bari Weiss's actions is exactly in line with why people despise the media. Okay? It's this kind of attitude. It's this kind of propaganda that makes people not trust the media. Okay? You can try to spike a CECOT story by claiming, oh, well, the administration didn't actually did not respond to our request for comment. So I guess we have to, we have to take a step back and never really release any investigative reporting unless they actually reach out. That's exactly the type of shit that people get pissed off about, okay? You cannot apply this standard as long as your reporters are reaching out to principals for comment. They're doing their due diligence, especially if they wait for an extended period of time. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This would mean that every single piece of news that comes out of CBS News going forward will either require the government's perspective, which again turns this into State Department propaganda or just regime propaganda, basically, or you just get an auto veto. And for the record, the White House did respond. As 60 Minutes finalized its Inside CECOT report last Thursday, CBS sent the White House a request for comment. A White House spokesperson responded within a few hours. The quote was not included in the 60 report, so judge for yourself whether it should have been included. The White House spokesperson, Abigail Jackson, said 60 Minutes should spend their time and energy amplifying the stories of angel parents whose innocent American children have tragically been murdered by vicious illegal aliens that President Trump are removing from the country. That's not a comment on the story. That's a misdirection. You are under no obligation to report that in the news piece that is supposed to feature the conditions of American migrants that legally came into the United States of America, or even undocumented migrants that came into the United States of America that were sent to CECOT without due process for no reason, where they actually experienced and other torturous conditions. Eerily similar to the events that led to 60 Minutes facing conflicts of interest and a merger spiking the biggest public health whistleblower story of the era, and producer Lowell Bergman quitting, depicted here in The Insider. Here.
And what are you implying?
I'm not implying, I'm quoting. More vested interests. Persons who will profit from this merger. Ms. Helen Caparella was done on this.
I mean, if we have a functional entertainment industry and a functional Hollywood 20 years down the line, maybe they'll do a story on Bari Weiss as well in a similar fashion. The Insider is a 1999 American biographical drama directed by Michael Mann and written by Mann and Eric Roth, based on Mary Brenner's 1996 Vanity Fair article, The Man Who Knew Too Much. A fictionalized account of a true story. It centers on the controversial 60-minute segment about Jeffrey Wigand, a whistleblower in the tobacco industry, covering his and his CBS producer Lowell Bergman's struggles as they defend his testimony against efforts to discredit and suppress it by CBS and Wigand's former employer. There it is. That's what this snippet is from. 1999 movie, Lessons Have Not Been Learned? No, of course not. Also, here was, Steve Miller basically going on television and giving the game away. Miller, this is what Steve Miller was asked what his opinion was about the 60 Minutes saga with Bari Weiss, and this is what he said.
And every one of those producers at 60 Minutes engaged in this revolt, fire them. Clean house, fire them. That's what I say, Charlie.
Nice, man. Oh, they're not doing regime propaganda? Fire him. It's that simple. God damn, he's such a goddamn weasel, dude. He is such a weasel. I hate this son of a bitch so much. You and the Majority Report both brought up the Insider this week. I mean, it's a direct one-to-one. It is from the same exact news segment. 60 Minutes has been around for a very long time. Okay. And it is supposed to be like premier investigative reporting. It obviously still very much plays the role of State Department propaganda. 60 Minutes at its peak was still obviously working with Mossad, where they did that famous piece on how Mossad had pulled off the greatest act of terror, the beeper assassinations that killed children, right? The problem here in the way that Bari Weiss is moving is that if you want to do good propaganda, you still every now and then have to criticize the government so you have at least the veneer of credibility. This is a reality that experienced news broadcasters in places like the New York Times understand. If she had actually put in work at the New York Times instead of dicking around, she would have recognized that. From the outsider, as an outsider, I can see this reality. This is a big part of my criticisms of the New York Times. Whenever New York Times will do like a good piece of investigative reporting, I always tell you, especially on especially on the plight of Palestinians or whatever, you guys go, what the why are they doing this? And I tell you all the time, it's because there is a push and pull here. If they just go all push, no pull, people are eventually going to say, oh, I know what's going on here. They have to have a healthy balance, a healthy diet of real reporting every now and then. That's why they have investigative reporters. They have to maintain a level of credibility, because if they lose all credibility, then they no longer can do propaganda, okay? If you lose all credibility, then no one believes you in moments of impact, in moments where you have to get people to believe you. There needs to be a veneer of credibility associated with these places so they can do propaganda better. Bari Weiss is just tanking the reputation of CBS slowly but surely by very openly just doing push and no pull. Now, of course, in this current media environment, maybe just simply being biased in the direction of the administration will benefit you in the long run. Who knows? I mean, after all, Fox News is the most successful, most popular news broadcast in this country. So who knows? Maybe it does work in the long run. But the impact of this will be even more damaging. Ali Abunima says, Bari Weiss censoring a 60 Minutes piece critical of Trump and its leak online is big news. But when Al Jazeera pulled the Lobby USA after Israel lobby pressure on Qatar and Intifada leaked it, not a single mainstream outlet reported it. Wonder why? This is also correct. There's always a bigger dog in the room. You feel me? Israel is the big dog in the room. Fox News people aren't moving the CBS, Hasan. I agree, but you never know if they fully turn CBS News into just Fox slop, regime slop, MAGA slop, maybe they'll actually start winning people over. CNN certainly is trying to do that, right? Many other news outlets are trying to do that right now. They realize that the only people that watch television still in this day and age are boomers and the lead poison generation, Gen Xers, but mostly just boomers. And boomers want that. Boomers want that slop. Hogs want the shit. They want to consume the slop. They want to consume the shit. Maybe that's the reason why these guys are also doing it. I don't think so. I think in the interim, the damage will be so devastating for the liberal-minded boomers that the right-wing grift will impact CBS very negatively. Not in a way that is dissimilar to how the right-wing impact damaged MSNBC, now known as MS Now. When they tried to pivot to the right, MSNBC, when they were supposed to be the liberal equivalent to Fox News, a lot of people stopped tuning in. CBS is still supposed to have a level of, like, if that's your brand, right, you're supposed to have a level of credibility, okay? Now, let me explain it to you. What I mean by this is if you look at news broadcasters as, like, I don't know, fast food. If In-N-Out tomorrow decided to serve shawarma, people would be like, I don't know about this. You know, it would take time for people to go to In-N-Out for shawarma. And if it was a costly endeavor, they would probably lose. If you're known for serving hamburgers, you got to keep serving hamburgers. You can't just like all of a sudden go, oh, we're doing animal style shawarma now at In-N-Out. And you certainly can't stop serving hamburgers in the process. Bari Weiss is coming in and saying, In-N-Out, I'm now in control of it. We're doing shawarma only. Okay, well then no one's going to come to In-N-Out for shawarma. No one knows In-N-Out for shawarma. There are a million other places where you can get shawarma that's better than In-N-Out. Stupid.